Jake Martinez was having what he'd later describe as a spectacularly garbage day, even by Tuesday's standards. His delivery car had died 3 blocks from Tony's Pizza Palace. The GPS on his phone was apparently drunk, and he'd been carrying a stack of increasingly cold pizzas through downtown for the past 20 minutes. The address on the receipt didn't seem to exist, which was just perfect, because Jake's rent was due tomorrow and he really needed those tips. Apartment 4B, 1247 Nowhere Street, he muttered, checking the receipt again. Great. Just great. Probably some college kid's idea of a prank order. That's when the blinding light hit him. Now, most people would probably scream, or faint, or at least have the decency to be terrified when a massive alien spacecraft materialized overhead and sucked them up in a tractor beam. Jake Martinez was not most people. "Oh, come on," he shouted at the swirling vortex of light. "I'm already having a bad day, and these pizzas are getting cold." The next thing he knew, he was standing in what looked like the bridge of a spaceship, still clutching his insulated delivery bag. The decor was all chrome and glowing panels, very sci-fi chic, but Jake's first thought was that whoever designed this place had never heard of ergonomics. "Seriously?" he said, looking around at the assembled aliens. "This is your interrogation room? It looks like a dentist's office had a baby with a disco. And what's with all the unnecessary lighting? My electric bill would be through the roof." The aliens stared at him. There were 3 of them, tall and vaguely humanoid, with bluish skin and way too many eyes. The one in the middle, who had more shiny bits on his uniform, stepped forward. "Human," the alien said in surprisingly good English. "You will remain silent while we—" "Human," Jake interrupted. "Wow, okay, that's not racist at all. I have a name, you know. It's Jake Martinez. And you are—" The alien's eye twitched, all 6 of them. "I am Commander Krelthon of the Vorthak Empire. You are now a prisoner of—" "Krelthon? That's actually pretty cool. Very commanding. Though I gotta ask, what's the deal with the cape? Is that a military thing, or are you just really into dramatic entrances?" The female alien to Krelton's left whispered something that sounded urgent. She had fewer shiny bits, but more gadgets, so Jake figured she was either the science officer or really into accessories. "Look," Jake continued, "I appreciate the whole alien abduction experience. Really, I do. But I've got pizzas getting cold here, and trust me, nobody wants to eat cold pizza. Well, except my roommate Mike, but he's weird. He also eats cereal with water instead of milk, so his opinion doesn't count." Commander Krelthon's jaw was doing something that might have been grinding. "You will be silent!" "I mean, I could be," Jake said reasonably. "But then how would you learn about our pizza delivery protocols? Because honestly, your customer service could use some work. No warning, no scheduling, just boom, tractor beam. What if I'd been busy? What if I'd been on the toilet? These are important logistical considerations." The science officer alien made a noise that sounded like a very frustrated sigh. Jake was starting to warm up to her. "Also," Jake continued, "I have to ask about your ship's interior design choices. Who told you that harsh blue lighting was a good idea? It's like being inside a refrigerator. And don't get me started on the seating situation. Where exactly am I supposed to sit? Everything's either too tall or glowing ominously." Commander Krelthon looked like he was developing a migraine. With 6 eyes, Jake figured that had to be at least twice as painful as a regular headache. The science officer stepped forward. "Perhaps we should proceed with the standard—" "Oh, you speak English too. That's convenient. I'm Nixera, by the way. Wait, no, let me guess, you're the smart one, right? You've got that whole 'I have 17 degrees but nobody listens to me' vibe going on. I can relate. I have a philosophy degree, and I deliver pizzas for a living." The alien, who was definitely Nixara, blinked several times in rapid succession. "How did you—" "It's all about reading the room," Jake explained. "Body language, you know? Universal stuff. Plus, you're the only one who hasn't tried to threaten me yet, which means you're either really nice or really smart. Probably both." Commander Krelthon was making a low growling sound that Jake chose to interpret as frustration rather than hunger. "Right then," Jake said, hefting his pizza bag. "So what exactly is the plan here? Are we doing the whole probing thing, or is this more of a take me to your leader situation? Because I should probably mention that our leaders are pretty busy right now, and also kind of crazy, so maybe we could schedule something for next week?" Commander Krelthon gestured to 2 smaller aliens who immediately began wheeling in what looked like a medieval torture device crossed with a high-tech scanner. Jake whistled appreciatively. Okay, now that's interesting, he said, walking around the contraption like he was shopping for appliances. Let me guess, neural probe? Memory extractor? Or, wait, is this one of those things that's supposed to cause unspeakable agony? Because honestly, it looks like the love child of a dentist's chair and a microwave. It is the Vorthak Mind Ripper, Krelthon announced, with what Jake assumed was supposed to be intimidating gravitas. It will extract every secret from your primitive brain. Mind Ripper? Jake laughed. Who named this thing? A 12-year-old? That's like calling a toaster the bread destroyer. And primitive brain? Dude, I've got a philosophy degree. I spent 4 years learning how to think about thinking. My brain is like a Russian nesting doll of overthinking. Nixara made a note on her tablet. Fascinating. The human displays no fear response to the Ripper. Perhaps their pain tolerance is... Oh, I'm terrified, Jake interrupted. But not of your disco torture chair. I'm terrified of going back to work without delivering these pizzas. Do you know what Tony does to drivers who lose orders? He makes them work the Saturday night shift. Alone. That's true psychological warfare right there. The commander's eyes narrowed. You dare mock the instruments of the Vorthek Empire? I'm not mocking, I'm critiquing. There's a difference. Like, okay, the glowing red parts? Very dramatic, great aesthetic choice, really sells the whole this is going to hurt vibe. But the restraints look uncomfortable, and comfort is key in any customer experience. Even torture should have some basic ergonomic considerations. Customer experience? Nixara's voice went up an octave. You're referring to torture as a customer experience? Well, yeah. I mean, I'm the customer here, right? You guys are providing a service, even if it's a service I didn't ask for. And look, I've worked customer service. The key is managing expectations and maintaining quality standards. This whole setup, it's very amateur hour. Jake walked over to examine a panel covered in blinking lights. Now this is just wasteful. You've got 17 different warning lights flashing here. Pick one, maybe 2 if you're feeling fancy. This many lights just says, we couldn't decide what was important, so we made everything urgent. It's like those people who write emails in all caps. Commander Krelthon looked like he was about to explode. Enough! You will submit to interrogation. Sure, but can we talk about your technique first? Because the whole shouty intimidation thing, it's very 1950s. Modern interrogation is all about building rapport, making the subject comfortable, maybe offering them a beverage. Speaking of which, do you guys have coffee? Because I've been up since 5 a.m. and I'm running on fumes here. We do not require your approval of our methods, Krelthon snapped. Maybe not, but you could use some constructive feedback. I mean, you've got this whole elaborate setup, the dramatic lighting, the scary chair, but then you just yell at me? Where's the psychological manipulation? The mind games? At least threaten my family or something. Make it personal. Nixara was writing furiously. The human is suggesting improvements to our interrogation protocols. This indicates advanced knowledge of psychological warfare techniques. Psychological warfare? Jake laughed. Lady, I worked retail for 3 years. You want to see psychological warfare? Try dealing with a customer who wants to return a clearly used item without a receipt on Black Friday. That's when you learn real intimidation tactics. Retail? Nixara's voice was getting higher. Are you referring to commercial combat scenarios? I guess you could call it that, though most of the combat was with my will to live. But seriously, you want to improve your interrogation game? First rule, know your subject. You didn't even ask me my name before you started with the threats. That's just rude. Commander Krelthon was making that growling sound again. Your name is irrelevant. You are merely a specimen for study. See, that's where you're wrong. Names are important. They create connection, establish trust. When someone knows your name, they're more likely to cooperate. Basic psychology. Also, calling me a specimen? That's dehumanizing, which is actually a pretty advanced technique, but you're doing it wrong. Doing it wrong? Krelthon's voice cracked slightly. Yeah, dehumanization works best when it's subtle. You go too obvious with it and the subject just gets annoyed instead of broken down. You want to make them question their own worth, not just insult them. It's like the difference between a scalpel and a sledgehammer. Nixara dropped her tablet. He's describing advanced psychological manipulation techniques as if they're common knowledge. Common knowledge? Jake shrugged. I mean, yeah, everyone knows this stuff. Haven't you guys ever been to therapy, or watched a cop show, or been married? This is basic human interaction 101. The two aliens exchanged a look that Jake interpreted as somewhere between panic and awe. Also, Jake continued, can we talk about the temperature in here? It's freezing. Cold makes people less cooperative, not more. You want them relaxed, maybe a little drowsy. 72 degrees, soft lighting, maybe some background music. Create an atmosphere where they want to talk. Commander Krelthon stared at him. You're telling us how to torture you more effectively. I'm telling you how to do your job better, there's a difference. Though honestly at this point I'd settle for a chair that doesn't look like it's going to electrocute me and maybe some of that coffee I mentioned. You know what I'm really curious about though? Jake said, settling into what looked like the least threatening chair he could find. This whole setup you've got here. The technology is fascinating. Like, how does this ship even work? Are we talking fusion power, antimatter, or something completely different? Ixara perked up despite herself. We utilize quantum fold energy matrices with trilithium core stabilizers. Trilithium? That sounds expensive. What's the fuel efficiency like on something this size? And don't tell me you're getting good mileage with all these lights running constantly. Our energy consumption is highly optimized, Nixara said proudly. We can maintain full operational capacity for approximately 47 standard cycles before requiring refueling. Jake did some quick math in his head. So like, 6 weeks? That's not terrible, but it's not great either. My buddy Dave's got a Honda Civic that gets better efficiency than that, and it's 15 years old. What happens if you're in the middle of nowhere and run out of juice? We carry emergency power cells, Commander Krelthon said stiffly. Standard military protocol. How many emergency cells? Jake asked with genuine curiosity. Enough, Krelthon replied, but Jake caught the slight hesitation. Ah, so not that many then. And I'm guessing they're not exactly lightweight either. That's a logistics nightmare right there. Plus, if you're running on emergency power, what systems do you have to shut down? Life support, weapons, shields? Ixara was furiously typing again. The human is conducting systematic intelligence gathering through casual conversation. Intelligence gathering? Jake laughed. I'm just making conversation. Though I have to say, 47 cycles seems like a pretty short operational window for a military vessel. What if you need to maintain a blockade or something? Do you have to tag team with other ships? The silence that followed was telling. Oh wow, Jake said. You do have to tag team. That's why you're not traveling alone, isn't it? There's a whole fleet out there, and you guys are working in shifts. That's actually pretty smart from a resource management perspective, but it must be a nightmare for coordination. Our fleet operations are classified, Krelthon said through gritted teeth. Right, of course they are. But here's the thing about classified information. The more you insist something is classified, the more obvious it becomes that it's important. Like, if fleet coordination wasn't a big deal, you wouldn't care if I knew about it. Jake stretched and looked around the room again. Speaking of which, it's really cold in here. Is that just an aesthetic choice or is there a practical reason? Because if you're trying to conserve power, that makes sense. Climate control is usually the biggest energy drain on any closed system. The temperature is maintained for optimal crew performance, Nixara said automatically. Optimal for your species, sure, but what about other environments? Like, if you guys invaded Earth, would you need to adjust your ship's climate control for human prisoners? Because that would be a huge additional power drain. You'd probably cut your operational window down to what, 30 cycles? Maybe less? The two aliens exchanged another look. Not that I'm giving you invasion advice, Jake added quickly. Just thinking about the logistics. It's fascinating how much planning goes into this stuff. Like, do you guys have to account for different atmospheric requirements for different species? That must be incredibly complex. The Vorthak Empire has protocols for all potential scenarios, Krelthon said, but he sounded less confident than before. All potential scenarios? Really? Because humans are pretty adaptable, but we're also really weird. Like, we can survive in a huge range of temperatures and altitudes, but we're also super picky about things like air quality and food. Plus, we're social creatures. Isolate us and we go crazy, but put too many of us together and we start fighting each other. Jake paused thoughtfully. Actually, that might be your biggest challenge right there. Human psychology is basically chaos theory with anxiety. You could have the most perfect invasion plan in the universe, and some guy would still find a way to mess it up, just by being stubborn. Stubborn? Nixara asked. Oh yeah, we're terrible about that. Like if you told a human not to push a big red button, the first thing they'd do is start thinking about pushing the button. It's not even malicious half the time, we're just really bad at being told what to do. This is valuable intelligence, Nixar whispered to Krelthon. The human is describing significant psychological vulnerabilities in their species. Vulnerabilities? Jake overheard. Oh no, you've got it backwards. The stubbornness isn't a vulnerability, it's a feature. We're incredibly difficult to control, precisely because we don't follow logical patterns. You could have the most advanced psychological warfare in the galaxy, and some human would still find a way to mess it up just by being weird. A new voice crackled through the ship's communication system, deeper and more authoritative than the others. "Commander Krelthon, report." "Admiral Zorthak," Krelthon straightened immediately. "We are conducting preliminary interrogation of the human specimen." "Specimen?" Jake called out cheerfully. "Hi, Admiral, Jake Martinez, nice to meet you. Love the voice, very intimidating. Do you guys all take the same public speaking class, or is the dramatic baritone just a natural thing?" There was a long pause before the Admiral's voice returned, noticeably less steady. "Commander, why is the prisoner speaking to me directly?" "We're having a chat," Jake explained. "Your boys here are trying to figure out how to invade Earth, and I'm trying to explain why that might be more complicated than they think. Also, your ship's climate control is really inefficient. You might want to look into that." Another pause. "Commander Krelthon, secure the prisoner immediately." "We're trying, sir," Krelthon said weakly. "The human appears to be resistant to standard protocols." "Resistant? I'm not resistant, I'm helpful. There's a difference. Though I do have to ask, Admiral, how many ships are in your fleet? Because if you're planning a full-scale invasion, you're going to need a lot more than whatever you've got now." The communication channel went silent for several long moments. Jake could practically hear the gears turning in Admiral Zorthak's head, which was impressive considering he was probably light years away. "Commander," the Admiral's voice finally returned, noticeably more controlled. "I want a full psychological profile of this human immediately, and engage Containment Protocol 7. "Containment Protocol 7? Jake perked up. "Ooh, that sounds serious. Is that like DEFCON 1 or more of a yellow alert situation? Because I've got to say, the suspense is killing me." Nixara was practically vibrating with excitement. "Commander, I believe we may have captured a high-level Earth intelligence operative. His interrogation techniques are beyond anything in our databases." "Intelligence operative?" Jake laughed so hard he nearly fell off his chair. "Lady, I deliver pizzas for a living. The most classified information I have access to is whether Tony uses real mozzarella or that fake stuff. Though between you and me, it's definitely the fake stuff." "The human continues to maintain his cover story," Krelthon observed grimly. "Classic misdirection technique." "Cover story? Dude, I've got my work uniform on and everything. Look, it says Tony's Pizza Palace right on the shirt. You can even smell the pepperoni grease if you get close enough." Admiral Zorth's voice cut through the discussion. "Commander, I want you to ask the human about their entertainment protocols. Intelligence suggests they use recreational activities as psychological conditioning." "Our what now?" Jake asked. "Entertainment? Like movies and TV shows? Sure, I can talk about that. Though I should warn you, I've got some pretty strong opinions about the Marvel Cinematic Universe." The aliens exchanged worried glances. "Begin with their horror entertainment," the Admiral ordered. "We need to understand their fear conditioning programs." "Horror movies?" Jake's face lit up. "Oh man, where do I even start? We've got everything from classic monster movies to psychological thrillers to straight-up gore fests. Like there's this one movie called The Thing, where this alien shapeshifter infiltrates an isolated research station and starts picking off the crew one by one, and nobody knows who's human and who's the monster." Nixara dropped her tablet again. "They have training simulations for alien infiltration scenarios?" "Training simulations?" Jake blinked. "No, it's just entertainment. Though, I guess it does teach you not to trust anyone in a crisis situation. An alien is basically a masterclass in how one small, seemingly harmless creature can destroy an entire spaceship full of trained professionals. They study tactical scenarios involving hostile alien encounters," Krelthon whispered to Nixara. "This is military preparation disguised as recreation." "Military preparation?" Jake was genuinely confused now. "These are just movies, guys. We watch them for fun, though I suppose Die Hard does teach you a lot about improvised weapons and using your environment tactically. And Home Alone is basically a tutorial on setting up defensive perimeters using household items." "They train their young in guerrilla warfare techniques," Nixara said, scribbling frantically, "using domestic scenarios to mask combat instruction." "Okay, now you're just being paranoid," Jake said. "Though, speaking of training the young, you should see what we let kids watch these days. Saw movies, Final Destination, The Walking Dead. We basically desensitize them to violence from an early age." The temperature in the room seemed to drop another few degrees. "Tell me about this Walking Dead," Admiral Zorthak commanded. "Oh, that's a good one. It's about a zombie apocalypse where most of humanity gets wiped out, and the survivors have to learn to live in a world where the dead come back to life and try to eat you. But here's the thing. The real enemy isn't the zombies, it's other humans. The show basically teaches you that in a survival situation, other people are your biggest threat. They prepare their population for post-apocalyptic scenarios, Krelathon said quietly, including conflict with their own species. And the best part, Jake continued enthusiastically, is that everyone becomes an expert in zombie apocalypse survival. Ask any human what they'd do if the dead started walking, and they'll have a detailed plan. We've basically crowdsourced our entire survival strategy through entertainment. Crowdsourced survival strategy, Nixara repeated slowly. They've weaponized their entire population through distributed tactical training. Weaponized? Jake laughed. We just like scary movies. Though I guess we do have a weird obsession with end-of-the-world scenarios. Movies about nuclear war, alien invasions, robot uprisings, zombie apocalypses, global pandemics. We've imagined pretty much every way the world could end and figured out how to survive it. They've prepared for every possible extinction scenario, Admiral Zorthak's voice was getting quieter. This is not a primitive species, Commander. This is a race of warriors disguised as civilians. Warriors? Jake was really confused now. We're not warriors, we're just paranoid. And we like to argue about everything. Seriously? Put two humans in a room and they'll find something to disagree about within 5 minutes. We've got reality TV shows, where the entire point is watching people fight with each other. Female gladiatorial combat entertainment, Krelathon observed, and they broadcast it for mass consumption. Reality TV isn't gladiatorial combat, Jake protested. It's just people being terrible to each other for money. Though I guess Survivor is kind of like a tactical training program, and The Bachelor teaches psychological manipulation techniques, and Big Brother is basically surveillance state training. The silence that followed was deafening. Oh, and don't get me started on social media, Jake continued cheerfully. We've got platforms where billions of people practice psychological warfare on each other every single day. Twitter alone has turned argument into an art form. We've basically gamified conflict. They've created a global psychological warfare training network, Nixara whispered. Every member of their species participates in daily combat drills. Combat drills? Jake shook his head. It's just Facebook, guys. Though I guess if you think about it, navigating social media does require a pretty thick skin and some serious mental flexibility. And customer service work is basically advanced hostage negotiation training. Admiral Zorthak's voice was barely audible now. Commander, I want you to return this human to their planet immediately. Sir? Krelathon sounded surprised. Immediately, Commander. We are not equipped to handle this level of psychological warfare specialist. And if this is what they consider a civilian... But sir, our invasion plans are cancelled. Permanently. Mark their planet as a no-contact zone. If they have operatives this advanced working in food service, imagine what their actual military is capable of. Jake perked up. Food service? Oh, you have no idea. Restaurant work will break you down and build you back up stronger. You want to see someone handle pressure? Watch a short order cook during the dinner rush. You want to see tactical thinking? Watch a server manage 8 tables while dealing with a broken POS system and a kitchen that's behind on orders. The communication channel went dead. Did he just hang up on me? Jake asked. That's kind of rude. Commander Krelathon was staring at the now silent communication panel like it had personally betrayed him. His military career was probably over, but at this point he was more concerned about getting this terrifying human off his ship before things got worse. So, Jake said, apparently oblivious to the existential crisis he'd just caused. Are we still doing the whole interrogation thing, or can I get back to work? Because I've got 3 more deliveries after this, and Mrs. Chen gets really cranky when her Hawaiian pizza arrives cold. Mrs. Chen? Nixara asked weakly. Yeah, she's one of my regulars. Lives in this apartment complex downtown, 4th floor, no elevator. Real pain to get to, but she tips well, so I don't complain. Well, I complain a little, but not to her face. Krelathon's remaining composure cracked. You're describing reconnaissance operations in urban environments. Reconnaissance? Jake laughed. Dude, it's called knowing your delivery route. You learn the buildings, the shortcuts, which apartments have broken buzzers, which ones have dogs that'll try to eat your ankles. It's basic job efficiency. The human has intimate knowledge of urban infrastructure and civilian behavioral patterns, Nixara observed, taking notes again. He's mapped defensive positions and identified potential hostiles. Defensive positions? Jake looked around, confused. I just know which apartments are on the ground floor because I'm lazy and don't want to climb stairs. And the dogs aren't hostiles, they're just poorly trained. Though Mrs. Patterson's chihuahua is definitely plotting something. That thing has murder in its eyes. He's identified security threats and assessed their tactical capabilities, Krelthon translated grimly. Tactical capabilities? It's a 5-pound dog with an attitude problem. Its tactical capability is making noise and occasionally peeing on people's shoes. Jake stretched and looked at his watch. Speaking of which, I've got this one customer, Mr. Rodriguez, who always orders the same thing. Large pepperoni, extra cheese, hold the sauce. Weird order, but whatever. The interesting part is his setup. He's got cameras all around his property, motion sensors, the whole 9 yards. Always pays in cash, never opens the door more than a crack. And there's always this weird smell coming from his basement. The two aliens went very still. Now, I'm not saying the guy's running some kind of illegal operation, Jake continued conversationally, but his security setup is better than most banks. Plus, he's got this habit of asking weird questions about my delivery schedule, how many other drivers Tony employs, what routes we usually take. Real paranoid type. The human has infiltrated a criminal organization, Nixara whispered. He's conducting surveillance on their operations. Infiltrated? I just deliver pizza to the guy. Though I'll admit, his questions are weird. Last week he asked if I'd ever noticed anyone following me on my deliveries. I told him yeah, sometimes GPS tracking gets wonky and it looks like there's another car on the same route, but that's just the app being glitchy. GPS tracking, Krelthon repeated slowly. You have monitoring systems tracking your movements. Well, yeah, Tony likes to know where his drivers are. Plus, the customers can track their orders in real time. It's all connected through the app. Really efficient system, actually. Tony can see exactly where each driver is, how long they've been on each delivery, optimal route calculations, the whole thing. So we may have a real-time surveillance network covering their entire urban area, Nixara said faintly, with predictive routing algorithms. Predictive routing? Jake nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, the app's pretty smart. It learns traffic patterns, predicts busy periods, automatically adjusts for weather and local events. Like, if there's a football game, it knows to expect more orders from certain neighborhoods and reroutes accordingly. It's like having a tactical AI managing logistics. Tactical AI, Krelthon repeated even more slowly. And the best part is how it integrates with everything else. Customer databases, payment processing, inventory management. Tony can tell at a glance how much food he needs to order, which neighborhoods are most profitable, even predict which customers are likely to become regulars based on their ordering patterns. Jake paused thoughtfully. Actually, now that I think about it, the amount of data these apps collect is kinda scary. They know where you live, when you're usually home, what you like to eat, how much money you spend on food, even your dietary restrictions and allergies. Put it all together, and you've got a pretty complete picture of someone's life. To me, have comprehensive psychological profiles on their entire population, Nixara said, her voice getting higher. Behavioral analysis, dietary preferences, economic status, residential patterns. Oh, and don't forget the reviews, Jake added. Every customer can rate their experience, leave comments about the service, the food, the driver, and we drivers can rate customers too. Bad tippers, people who give wrong addresses, customers who are rude or difficult to deal with. The app keeps track of all of it. Mutual surveillance and behavioral modification through social pressure, Krelthon observed. They've gamified population control. Population control? Jake looked confused. It's just Yelp for pizza delivery. Though I guess it does change how people behave. Nobody wants a bad rating, so customers are usually polite and drivers try to provide good service. It's like a little self-contained social ecosystem. Self-contained social ecosystem, Nixara repeated, writing frantically. They've created micro-societies with built-in behavioral enforcement mechanisms. And the data sharing is incredible, Jake continued. All these delivery apps talk to each other. Order from one place and suddenly you're getting targeted ads from their competitors. They know your food preferences better than you do. I've got customers who get recommendations for new restaurants before they even know they want to try something different. Predictive behavioral modeling, Krelthon said weakly. They can anticipate individual actions before the individuals themselves are aware of their intentions. Plus, the integration with social media is seamless. People post pictures of their food, check in at restaurants, share their experiences. The apps learn from all of it. They know not just what you eat, but how you feel about it, who you share meals with, what occasions trigger certain food choices. Jake shook his head in amazement. Really? When you think about it, the whole food delivery industry is basically one massive data collection operation that happens to deliver pizza on the side, and people just accept it because they want their food fast and convenient. The silence in the room was deafening. But hey, Jake said cheerfully, at least the pizza's usually hot when it arrives, most of the time. Unless you're ordering from that place on 5th Street. They can't seem to figure out their oven timing. Nixara had stopped writing. Her tablet lay forgotten on the floor, and she was staring at Jake with a mixture of terror and awe. Commander, she said quietly, I believe we may have severely underestimated this species. You think? Krelthon's voice cracked. The human has just described a civilization-wide surveillance network that monitors every citizen's behavior, predicts their actions, and modifies their conduct through social pressure, all disguised as a food delivery service. Food delivery service? Jake looked hurt. Hey, we provide a valuable service. Do you know how hard it is to coordinate multiple orders across a city, manage inventory, handle payment processing, and maintain quality control? It's logistics on a massive scale. Logistics on a massive scale, Krelthon repeated numbly. Yes it is. The communication panel suddenly crackled back to life. Commander Krelthon, this is Admiral Zorthak. Status report. Admiral? Krelthon's voice was barely steady. The human has revealed additional intelligence about their species' capabilities. They appear to have implemented a planet-wide surveillance and behavioral modification system using food distribution as cover. Food distribution, the Admiral repeated slowly. They've weaponized their supply chain. It appears so, sir. They monitor population movements, predict individual behavior, maintain comprehensive psychological profiles, and use social pressure to enforce compliance, all while maintaining the appearance of a simple commercial service. And this is just for food delivery? Admiral Zorthak asked. Just one sector, sir. The human indicates this level of data integration and behavioral analysis is standard across their entire economy. There was a long pause. Commander, I want that human off your ship immediately. Do not engage in any further conversation. Do not accept any suggestions or advice. Return him to his planet and establish a permanent quarantine beacon around their system. Sir, what about our invasion plans? What invasion plans, Commander? We never had any invasion plans. As far as the Empire is concerned, that system doesn't exist. Are we clear? Crystal clear, sir. Good. And Commander? Once you've returned the human, I want you to report to medical for a full psychological evaluation. Extended contact with their operatives may have compromised your mental stability. Yes, sir. The communication channel went dead again. Operatives? Jake asked. Are you guys okay? You're looking a little pale. Well, paler than usual. 2 hours later, Jake found himself standing in the exact same spot where he'd been abducted, still clutching his insulated pizza bag. The alien ship was already disappearing into the night sky, moving with what could only be described as desperate haste. Well, that was weird, Jake muttered, checking his watch. And I'm definitely late now. His phone buzzed with a text from Tony. Where are you? Mrs. Chen called 3 times about her Hawaiian pizza. Jake sighed and started walking back toward the pizza shop. He'd have to come up with some explanation for why he'd been gone for 3 hours, but knowing Tony, I got abducted by aliens probably wouldn't cut it. Maybe he'd say his car broke down. That was technically true, even if it wasn't the whole story. His phone rang just as he reached Tony's Pizza Palace. The caller ID showed Tony's number. Yeah, boss, I know I'm late, Jake answered. My car died and I had to walk back. Jake? Tony's voice sounded strange. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours. I told you, car trouble. Why, what's going on? What's going on? Tony's voice pitched higher. What's going on is I just got a call from some guy claiming to be from the Department of Defense. He said you'd been selected for a special commendation and that the government was very grateful for your service to national security. Jake stopped walking. What? That's what I said. I told him you'd deliver pizzas, not state secrets. But then he said something about hazard pay and asked for your employee file. Jake, what the hell did you do? I honestly have no idea, Jake said, which was completely true. What did you tell him? I told him you were my best driver, and that if the government wanted to poach you, they'd have to pay me a finder's fee. So he did. He did what? He paid me a finder's fee. Jake, I just got a direct deposit for $50,000 with a note saying, compensation for employee Jake Martinez's extraordinary service to planetary security. Jake's brain tried to process this information and failed. Planetary security? That's what I said, but then I got another call. This one from some woman claiming to be from NASA. She wanted to know if you'd shown any unusual interest in astronomy or space technology. I told her the only thing you were interested in was getting your deliveries done on time. And she said that was exactly what they were hoping to hear. Jake, what is going on? Jake honestly didn't know. The whole alien abduction thing seemed too bizarre to be real, but the alternative explanations weren't making much sense either. Look, Tony, I'm just as confused as you are. Can I just get back to work? I still need to deliver these pizzas. About that, Tony said. The Defense Department guy said you were being promoted to Senior Logistics Coordinator, with a salary increase and full benefits. He also said something about your pizza delivery experience being invaluable training for complex operational scenarios. Operational scenarios? That's what he said. Jake, I don't know what you've gotten yourself into, but apparently you're some kind of hero now. The government wants to give you a medal. Jake looked down at his slightly rumpled uniform and grease-stained pizza bag. A medal? For what? For services to national security. They wouldn't be more specific than that. Meanwhile, approximately 17 light-years away, Admiral Zorthak was addressing the Vorthak High Command via secure transmission. His usually pristine uniform was wrinkled, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Honored Council, he began, I must formally recommend the immediate reclassification of Sol 3, also known as Earth, from potential conquest target to existential threat, avoid at all costs. The council members exchanged glances. High Counselor Vrextal leaned forward. Admiral, your preliminary report suggested a primitive species with limited technological capabilities. That was an error in assessment, Admiral Zorthak said carefully. Further investigation revealed that what we interpreted as primitive civilization is actually an incredibly sophisticated deception. The species has developed psychological warfare capabilities that exceed our understanding. Psychological warfare? Counselor Nixival asked. Are you referring to their military? No, Counselor. I'm referring to their civilians. Their entire population appears to be trained in advanced interrogation techniques, behavioral manipulation, and intelligence gathering. They've created a planet-wide surveillance network that monitors every individual's behavior and predicts their actions with frightening accuracy. Surely you're exaggerating, Counselor Vrextal said. I wish I were. One of their operatives, posing as a food delivery worker, extracted detailed information about our fleet capabilities, power systems, and operational limitations in a single conversation. He did this while appearing to make casual conversation. A food delivery worker. Counselor Nixival sounded skeptical. That's what he claimed. But consider this. If their food delivery personnel are trained to this level, what must their actual intelligence services be capable of? The council chamber fell silent. Furthermore, Admiral Zorthak continued, their entertainment industry appears to be a massive training program designed to prepare their entire population for every conceivable conflict scenario. They've gamified warfare, turned social interaction into psychological combat, and created a society where every citizen is a potential intelligence operative. And you discovered this how? Counselor Vrextal asked. The operative told me, directly. He described their capabilities as if they were common knowledge, which suggests that what we witnessed was merely the surface level of their preparedness. High Counselor Vrextal was quiet for a long moment. Admiral, what are you recommending? Complete avoidance, Honorable Counselor. We establish a quarantine perimeter around their system and classify any contact as a Class 7 security breach. No ships, no probes, no communication. We pretend they don't exist. But the strategic value of their planet is not worth the risk, Admiral Zorthak interrupted. Honored Council, I have served the Empire for 47 cycles. I have conquered 12 worlds and subjugated 6 different species. I have never encountered anything like this. These humans are not a species to be conquered. They are a species to be avoided. The vote was unanimous. Back on Earth, Jake was finally approaching Mrs. Chen's apartment building, 3 hours late, and completely unaware that he'd just saved his planet from alien invasion. His phone was buzzing with texts from other drivers asking why Tony seemed so happy all of a sudden, and why there were rumors about Jake getting promoted. This day just keeps getting weirder, Jake muttered, climbing the stairs to the 4th floor. Mrs. Chen answered the door before he could knock. She was a small, elderly woman with sharp eyes and the kind of expression that suggested she'd been waiting for quite some time. Jake, she said, you're late. I know, Mrs. Chen, I'm really sorry. I had some transportation issues. Transportation issues? She looked at him suspiciously. Young man, I've been tracking your GPS location for the past 3 hours. According to my app, you were stationary about 2 miles north of here for most of that time. You were tracking my GPS? Of course. I wanted to know when to expect my pizza, but your location dot just sat there for hours, not moving. What were you doing? Jake looked at Mrs. Chen, thought about everything that had happened, and realized that any explanation he gave would sound completely insane. You know what, Mrs. Chen, I honestly couldn't tell you if I wanted to, but your pizza's still hot. She accepted the pizza and gave him a surprisingly generous tip. Next time, just call if you're going to be late. I worry about you drivers. As Jake walked back down the stairs, he reflected on what had been, without question, the strangest day of his life. He'd been abducted by aliens, apparently prevented an interstellar war, gotten promoted at work, and somehow became involved with the Department of Defense, all while trying to deliver a Hawaiian pizza. At least I'm getting hazard pay now, he said to himself. His phone buzzed with another text from Tony. Jake, I don't know what you did, but the government just ordered catering for some big meeting next week. They specifically requested you as the delivery driver. Also, they're paying triple our usual rate. Jake stared at the message. Well, he said to the empty street, I guess I'm moving up in the world. High above Earth's atmosphere, a small monitoring satellite that had been placed there by the Vorthak Empire years earlier quietly powered down its systems and began transmitting a final message to the fleet. Species classification, updated. Threat level, absolute. Recommendation, immediate withdrawal. Do not engage under any circumstances. The message was received, logged, and filed under planets we pretend don't exist. And Jake Martinez, completely oblivious to his new status as Earth's most effective deterrent against alien invasion, got back to work delivering pizzas, wondering why everyone suddenly seemed so interested in his opinions about logistics and customer service. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all.